Welcome, and thank you for joining us today on Legacy of Leaders on Buzz TV. I'm your host, Dan Edelman, here with Dr. Shyam Paryani of the University of North Florida. Shyam, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dan.
Shyam, this program is about leadership, and I know you and your family, going back to your father's time, were entrepreneurs in this community to bring about so many things in medicine. But tell us a little bit about what you've learned and what you would recommend to up-and-coming leaders, whether they be physicians or otherwise, about leadership.
So I think most of us get pushed into leadership because we excel at a different area. And of course, I excelled at healthcare, which thanks to my father, had already laid the groundwork for it. So I got pushed into leadership. But often once we get in leadership, we find out that we're not really prepared for it. And so I think preparing for leadership is the most important part of success.
And do the medical schools prepare doctors for leadership?
So medical schools are great for teaching you how to take care of patients, which is important. If there's a respiratory arrest or cardiac arrest, you know how to react to it. But if you had a crisis in your practice, it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't teach you anything about how to handle that crisis in an office atmosphere or a business atmosphere. So we have to teach and train doctors after medical school and residency, because it's not taught there, about how to become great leaders.
And how do you do that?
And so I think leadership is learned. I think to a large degree there are some traits that are innate. You have to have the drive and the desire, but really most of the leadership can be trained. Most leaders can be trained. So I have actually a program at the University of North Florida. It's called the Executive Masters in Health Administration, and the goal of that program is solely to train leaders in healthcare. So we take people who are already in healthcare, physicians, nurses, physical therapists, doesn't matter, any of the ancillary providers, or even managers who are the lower or middle level who want to aspire to be the higher level leaders in healthcare, and train them to be leaders. And we do so by a systematic approach to training and giving all the information that's necessary for a leader to succeed. And also kind of practice. We are around other leaders who are mentors that will let you understand what leadership involves.
And so I know for 20 or 30 years you were a practicing physician. Are you still a practicing physician, or are you focused totally on training these leaders, and did you learn everything from really the hard way, which is doing it and learning it from your mistakes?
Well, actually, I got smart. I actually went to UNF and actually got an MHA degree. So I had the same degree that I'm teaching. Back in 2000, I got that degree. So while I was still practicing, I went back and got that skill set. And ever since, I've been teaching on an adjunct basis, just
Right.
a part-time basis. But I stopped doing clinical medicine in 2017. And so I said, well, I'll probably just teach as an adjunct, once in a little while. But in 2019, the opportunity came along to develop this special program aimed mostly at clinicians and people who are on the way to higher leadership. And so I helped develop that program and instituted, and now we have a very successful program, 4 years later in that area. So
It's interesting, because again, physicians are so integrated into the community in many ways, and a lot of them give back in many, many ways. And so your path to being a practicing physician, to now being out of that, and UNF is such a gem for this community. It gives back in so many ways, and really now you're building the healthcare leaders for the future.
I'm fortunate. I think I have the opportunity to go back and give some of my advice and skills that you talked about that we acquire along the way, and the knowledge that's required to be a great leader. And so I think I feel fortunate to be at UNF and the Brooks College of Health. We have a very active program in training the leaders of tomorrow.
So if there's a new young doctor watching today, what's the one thing you would tell them as far as becoming a leader in their field and in medicine?
So first thing is go out, seek another leader, and find out how they got there. Use them as a mentor, and I'm sure they'll guide you the pathway. Most of them got educational background, additional training to be a leader. It didn't come naturally. And so use that mentorship to advance themselves. or seek out a program like ours. And so they can obviously reach us at UNF, and we'll tell them a little bit more about how to advance their career in leadership.
Shyam, thank you. You've led an interesting and unusual path, and certainly beneficial to this community, both what you're doing and what UNF is doing. Thank you for joining us today, and you at home, thank you. I'm your host, Dan Edelman. Thank you for joining us on Legacy of Leaders.